So last year, someone from Mozilla Europe spoke, and we did a poll to see how many people used Firefox. I think the entire room raised their hands. So let's try that again. I know I use Firefox.
Yay. Oh.
Yep, that's pretty much what I thought. So how has Mozilla's growth been over the past year?
It's been good. We're at about 200 million users around the world, a lot of them in Germany, about 21, 22 million users in Germany. I think we're up at 35, 36% of the German internet population uses Firefox. So I think it's good. It's been quick.
So it was a two-horse race for a while, and now it's became a three-horse race with Apple, and now it's a four-horse race. Where's that going?
Well, I think the big story is that the web's winning. So, since Chrome came out a month or so ago, everybody said the questions have all been, well, how are you going to compete with somebody who's got more money than you do, and is smarter than you are, and is more handsome than you are, and better looking, and funnier, and all this stuff. And the thing is, like, it's good that Google is participating. It's good that they're helping make the web better. And I think the big story is that the web is winning. So Safari is a great browser. IE8 is way better than IE7 was.
Well, you really pushed IE.
What's that?
You really pushed IE. We'd still be on IE5.
I think, well, IE6 probably, but yeah, but it would be 6.5 or something. But yeah, but Chrome's good. I mean, and like the big story here is like, a major internet company released an open source browser from the start. And so I think that's a good deal for everyone.
And so Google decided to use WebKit over Gecko.
Mm-hmm.
What are your feelings on that?
Well, I think WebKit's good. I prefer Gecko. I think Gecko had more years to get more compatible with more of the web. I think WebKit's good too, and WebKit's strong. It's got different strengths than Gecko. I think Gecko's strength is more compatible. I think we're now seeing an interesting race in JavaScript. So JavaScript is probably 5 or 10 times faster than it was a year or two ago. Both in our engine, we've got new stuff called TraceMonkey coming. V8, Google's JavaScript engine. Squirrelfish Extreme is Apple's, and I think they're all orders of magnitude better than JavaScript used to be, and it's going to mean a whole new set of applications coming.
And do you feel that's been driven by all the Ajax apps out there and just consumer need?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the web is winning. So there's more and more. I find more and more applications running in my browser. More of my day is spent in the browser, running Gmail or Calendar or whatever. And I think just people are realizing the web is a legitimate platform, and JavaScript is more than a legitimate language. It's a real language for using for lots of complicated applications.
And so how has Chrome changed your relationship with Google? Because you depend on them. You have a deal signed with them through November of 2011.
Yep. Well, so I think everybody's relationship with Google is a complicated one. I think we were just talking in the green room. It's like when Google's not competing with you, they're a partner, and when they're not partners with you, they're competing with you. But Google, let's be honest, right? Google touches everything. Google touches everything on the web, and so I think we've had a good relationship. I think they've done a lot of things to open the web. I think we've done a lot of things to open the web. I think it's more complicated now because you compete some days and you partner other days. But I think fundamentally it's good. We collaborate on some components like safe browsing, anti-phishing, anti-malware. We hope to do that more.
Now, I've heard about a secret project called Data. That'll be aggregate usage data. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so a year ago, probably 8 months ago or so, we were talking about, we see a lot of information coming through the browser around who uses what browsers in which language. So we know that about 6.5 million people used our German language version yesterday, for example. And I was talking to TechCrunch, to Mike Arrington, and he said, oh, you guys could be the new ComScore, the new Nielsen, and he wrote that. And that, I think, was over-interpreted. We were just trying to talk about data, trying to talk about this gorilla in the room, which is lots of people collect lots of information about users every day. We don't collect any information other than sort of updating data about which languages are updating. But it got kind of overblown into a thing about we're going to be spyware and collecting information about everybody. I think we just really wanted to talk about it and understand where the parameters were, because a lot of companies are collecting data but not talking about it. And because we're living so much of our lives on the web, it's going to become more and more important that we understand the parameters at least.
But you must know search engine usage.
I'm sorry?
You must know search engine usage.
We don't. We don't at all. So our searches get passed to Google or Yahoo. We don't proxy any of this stuff. We never tried to be in the middle of any of that stuff.
But don't you see it back on your billing sheets?
Well, we see a number. So we see a number from Yahoo, a number from Google, but that's all we really see.
Wow. So Fennec, your mobile browser, seems to be one of your big initiatives.
Yep.
What's the status?
So Fennec, we released an alpha last week, our first alpha, on the Maemo platform, on Nokia's Linux platform. It was called a user interface alpha, so we were really trying to get the product into people's hands so they could start playing with the interface, see what the URL bar needed to act like. I think we're really trying to figure out how to improve the user experience, but also give a performant engine. So, we're doing a lot of work on performance, a lot of work on interface, and we put it out last week. I think that we'll start to see, we'll see more finished versions of that in 2009, hopefully earlier. We've got builds running on Windows Mobile now, and we'll see other platforms soon.
You're also targeting BlackBerry?
We're not. So it's notable the ones we're not targeting. So BlackBerry we're not targeting, iPhone we're not targeting, and Android we're not targeting.
Now iPhone you can't because of the SDK restrictions, because you can't interpret code.
Right.
And Android has WebKit baked in, so...
Well, Android's got two issues for us right now, and I never say never on this, but the Android's, they've got WebKit baked in, so they do have a legitimate browser. But more than that, the application layer right now is in Java, and that doesn't work well to building Mozilla on top of that.
What is Mozilla coded in?
In C, in C++.
And why not BlackBerry?
That's a good question. It's just we focused on other platforms first, really.
Oh. Now, you said that by releasing Chrome and Safari, we're making the web better. Mm-hmm. In what specific ways, other than JavaScript speed?
Well, a bunch of things. So, if you remember 4 or 5 years ago, to interact with your bank, you had to have IE and an ActiveX control. So that's mostly gone. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, all the banks that are still in business, you can mostly do with JavaScript, right? So I think that the move to standards is a big deal. The move to, because there's more than one legitimate rendering engine, Gecko and WebKit and Trident for IE, and Operas, it means that more and more developers are coding to standards-based interfaces. More and more developers develop things that work on all platforms. And I think that's just good for the web.
Where do you think Mozilla's place is with helping out with OpenID and OAuth? So those are two real initiatives on the web. However, the user interface really just kind of kills the process. Right.
So I think that OpenID, OAuth, these are both important things. I think our point of view is that the websites and the web properties have more at stake in this than we do. And so I think we're content to let these things develop, and we're happy to implement as they get accepted by the web properties. But I think that Facebook, Delicious, MySpace, all these guys have more at stake than we do.
It's true, but it seems like OpenID in particular could really use some browser help. It's such a jarring experience to go from one site to the other. Yep.
So that's a fair point. It's not something we've paid attention to a lot. We've got a couple of experiments in Mozilla Labs that are using some of that stuff, but it hasn't been a focus yet.
But you decided to go with Geode, which is your location-aware browsing extension that you just released last week or 2 weeks ago. Yep. So what was the decision-making process there?
Well, Geode, so for people who don't know, Geode is it's a location-aware, it's an extension for Firefox that lets you have location awareness. So it will plug into Skyhook Wireless at the moment, but you can also have other location providers to tell the browser where you are, so that things like Yelp can say, oh, if you're in this place, here's some restaurants and things around you. That's a W3C spec. We felt like it was time to implement an extension that implemented that. In Firefox 3.1, it'll be baked into the product. Mm-hmm. And so we did it as a Labs add-on to start getting feedback on the user interface. Because you really do want to figure out how users want to tell location. So is it, I always want to tell some set of people where I am exactly and some other set of people where I am roughly and what's all the degrees in between. So because we knew it was coming in Firefox 3.1, we wanted to get it into as many people's hands as we could to start with.
Now, one of the big problems that there's been with the iPhone is that there isn't background location updating. Right? Will Geode be able to do that?
Interesting.
So as I'm surfing the web, if I'm on Fennec, riding around on a bus, it's not just updating the location it's not just giving my location to the web page I'm on, but it's, say, updating Fire Eagle or my Loki.
Yeah, I've been playing with Bright Kite on my own iPhone, and I've no background updating makes it hard because you have to start the application to get it to update. That's a good idea, and it's not something I know. I'm not sure we've talked about it, but it's a good idea, of course.
And so what else is coming out of labs? I was poking through the site last night. I found Weave. I know you're working on offline apps. You've got Prism, which lets you take data or applications separate from the browser. You've got Ubiquity, which gives a programmable kind of command line interface to the browser.
Well, we've got a bunch of things. So as you know, we started Mozilla Labs maybe a year and a half ago. And the idea, my background is I used to work at Apple Labs. I used to work in a couple of research organizations. And we wanted to see at Mozilla if we could start a labs research kind of effort that was more like Mozilla than like Bell Labs. So how do you start a research effort that kind of takes the community and it enables the community to do good experiments as opposed to what we did at Apple, which is we were in building one and an infinite loop all day, thinking big thoughts and trying to build great interfaces. But it was very inward focused. And at Mozilla, we wanted to create a very outward focused lab. And so most of the experiments in labs are all about how do you create something that other people can run with and other people can do great stuff on. So Ubiquity is sort of how do you make a command line for the web? So how can you, select content and say map this, or select content and say send this with Gmail, or translate this into English and have it translate in place. And so Ubiquity is extensible, and I think maybe 1,000 or 2,000 commands have been written since we released it, and as a 0.1 version a couple of months ago. Weave is all about services, and again, it's all about what can you do in the cloud that delivers your data to you in the browser. So doing bookmark syncing, doing history syncing, helping you connect with people, that kind of stuff. And that's, again, it's a cloud-based service, but it's going to be a platform that'll let other people build on top of it. We have a thing called the Concept Browser series, which is we're trying to invite designers and more visually oriented people to figure out, imagine the browser of the future. So we worked with Jesse James Garrett to do an imagination exercise about what the browser looks like in 5 or 10 or 15 years. And I think as you start to think in 5 or 10 or 15 year chunks, what you realize is that it's really hard to think that far ahead, because so much of what we do now is innovation based not on technology, but based on social innovation. Facebook wasn't exactly a new idea. It was a lot like Friendster, a lot like some of the things that had come before it. But the time was right for them to do this socially. And so I think that as you start to think about what the technology for the browser looks like 5 or 10 or 15 years, what you realize is it takes some imagination about how we're going to interact 10 or 15 years from now. And
so you just hired Ben Galbraith and Dion Almer from Ajaxian. I don't know how many of you know them, but Dion was recently with Google, and he left to start up your developer tools division.
Yep. So we're excited about these guys. Do you guys know this Ajaxian? How many people have heard of Ajaxian? Yeah, so Ajaxian is great. So Ben and Dion are these amazing guys who just want to make the web better for Ajax developers. And they came to us and said, basically that they wanted to come to Mozilla to build tools for, irrespective of browser, irrespective of platform, build tools to make things great. And you really, as you start to look at the tool chain that Adobe has, the tool chain that Microsoft has, what you realize is there's no really, really good tool chain for the open web. There's no really good way to build Canvas apps or SVG apps or even open video. And so they came to us and said, we'd like to do this in Mozilla. And we've been really, really happy to have them involved. We're going to ramp them up over the next 3 months, next 4 months. But I think there's going to be a lot of great stuff that comes from our new developer tools group, and that's part of our labs too.
Now, my understanding is this is going to be cross-browser.
Yep.
These tools, so it'll help everybody.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about being Mozilla is that we happen to like Firefox. I happen to like Firefox better than most browsers, but I don't care too much about what wins as long as the open web wins. And so Dion and Ben, their charter is to make it for all browsers.
Now, you have John Ressig, the creator of jQuery, on there, and you just recently gave him Firebug. Is he going to be a part of that, and where's Firebug's role?
Yeah, so Gabe is a little strong. We have a number of talented people both inside Mozilla and outside Mozilla that work on Firebug, including Rob Campbell, who's at Mozilla, including John Barton, who's at IBM. But it goes back to Joe Hewitt and others from a long time ago. Firebug's incredibly important, I think, for obvious reasons. I think that WebKit, Safari's got new developer tools as well. They're getting better and better. I think Microsoft does. Firebug for us matters a lot. Like making developers debugging life in the browser matters almost completely for Firefox. So we just released, I think, Firebug 1.3. We'll do more and more updates. They are certainly interacting with Ben and Dion as we go.
So we have about 9 minutes left. I'd like to open up for questions from the floor. Just stand up and I'll repeat your question. And if not, I'll just keep going. Questions? I thought we were getting too geeky. The first question is, why isn't GreaseMonkey, which lets users create scripts to modify the web pages that they're on, a part of Firefox?
Firefox has had a really strong add-on culture since we started. Firefox is all about tweaking and mashing up the browser, more or less. GreaseMonkey was written by somebody as an add-on. It's his code, not our code, just like AdBlock, more or less.
So, I'm curious. Well, I don't see any more hands up right now. All right.
I was wondering, there's been some new features in Firefox 3, like graph HTML5 and some other stuff that's been thrown in for security models that have been developed, and there's been anything input of how those things can be secure. Fortunately, a couple of them got pulled in the last second, but some people made the 3.1 and cross-made some security requests. What is Mozilla's idea about adding browser features to security? Do you guys actually, W3C's doing a very poor job security-wise. Are you guys going to try to be proactive, or do you rather just put features out first and handle security? I feel like the geolocation stuff is terrifying, honestly.
So Alex Stamos of ISEC Partners, who did the security workshop on Tuesday, is asking how do you handle security of add-ons and extensions?
Yep. Well, actually, he asked how do we handle security of new features in the browser. Mentioned he thinks that the Geode stuff is terrifying because the browser knows where you are. I think, and cross-site XML HTTP requests too. You're right to note there are hard security issues we don't know what to do with yet. I think this is true for all browser manufacturers, all browser makers. We should be having these conversations in public. We try to, so most of our cross-site XML HTTP request stuff, we've tried to have the conversation in public on the news groups and stuff like that. We try to do that. We also do internal audits of features. Lab stuff's a little bit separate. So we launched Geode and Ubiquity knowing that there were things to work out in the security model and knowing beforehand that the security model kind of depended on the mode of use. And so we wanted to see how people use them before we started opining about some of the security features. Stuff that goes into Firefox is not like that. So we know that by the time it goes into Firefox, it has to have relatively good consensus on security issues. So other than having the conversations in public, having the conversations with other browser makers, I'm not sure what the best we can do. If you have suggestions on what you think the right form would be, I'd be interested in talking to you about it some more.
Any other questions?
Do you think that for the average user, so not us in this room, that we all understand the importance of Firefox and Firebug, how it changed our life, honestly. But for the standard user, does the browser matter? Or they are just on a social platform, they see Facebook, MySpace, they don't realize what it is?
Yeah, so he asked, for most users, does the browser matter? Or do most people, is it okay if they surf an IE or Chrome or Safari or whatever comes with their computer? So I think that empirically right now, it doesn't matter. So 78% of the world uses the browser that came with their computer, whether it's Safari or IE. 72% of the world uses IE7 or IE6. And I'm going to assert that it's not 72% of the world because they really, really love IE7 or IE6. I'm going to assert that it's because it's what came with them, and they think the blue E is the internet. I think this is not a great state of affairs. I think that the browser mediates more and more of our experience, more and more of our interactions with our friends, with our banks, with our hospital providers, with our schools, with everything. And so that's actually, I think, the #1 best reason, the best thing about Chrome from Google is they're going to help educate people about how the browser matters. It's not just the server, it's not just the website, the browser is mediating your experience. And so we have a lot to do. Like 78% of the people in the world, that's a lot of people to educate that the choices you make with your software affects the way you look at things. Now, I think there's some things that are going to accelerate this. As I mentioned, Chrome, Safari, Firefox all have very, very fast JavaScript engines now. And so I think like differentially faster than Microsoft's. And so I think you're going to start seeing applications being written that will work in these browsers that just won't work in IE. And it's going to be the applications and the content that I think pulls more people to new browsers, not the fact that there's a shinier browser out there. So I'm hopeful that as we start to push the limits of JavaScript, we start to push into this new world of web apps that are robust and that more and more people understand that there's a difference. But it's a really good question. I think that most people, once they know there's an alternative and they try Firefox or Chrome, they usually stick with it.
Yeah, I really see Geode that way as well. I mean, being able to share your location is going to become really powerful and is going to start to show up in all sorts of web apps.
Yeah, like I've been playing with BrightKite, as I said, for the last 24 hours, and I'm already starting to get a little bit addicted towards feeding my Twitter stream with where I am. So it's going to start to feel a little bit strange if my wife or my friends can't tell where I am from my iPhone, for better or worse, and some better, some worse. Sorry? Well, yeah.
Yes, divorce lawyers will love it. That and Aki. So you were just here for the past couple days for the Berlin Hack Days. What came out of that?
We try to have these community hack days around the world. So the labs guys, Aza Raskin and Dan Mills, held an event in London on Monday, held an event here in Berlin yesterday and the day before. We just invite the communities to come in and talk about what we're doing. These are not giant events. We get 5, 10, 15, 20 people in a city. But the people who, it's the Mozilla ethos, which is you show up, you get to make decisions. You show up and you engage and participate. That's what gets you points. That's what gets you credit. And so very often, you never know what you'll see. You never know who you'll connect with. But it's always interesting, and you'll always connect with somebody. And so, we've met a few people who I think will work on some labs projects with us here, some in London. That's all you can really hope for.
Now, how much of your efforts are in the browser versus, say, all of your other projects, like Sunbird and Lightning, SeaMonkey, and perhaps give a definition of those two?
Yeah, so Mozilla, we have two different things. There's products, and then there's projects. And the products we have are Firefox and Thunderbird. And my company does Firefox, a sibling company does Thunderbird. And they're in Lightning, they're going to do as well. And then we have projects, which are community projects. So Camino is a community project, SeaMonkey is a community project. These are projects we support, but we don't officially do the releases. They're all done by the community. The web matters a lot. The web is this transformational technology that is a platform, and that's all of us do all of our work every day. And so we've focused a lot on doing that for the last several years, partly in Firefox, but partly other things as well. Email and communications is going to matter as well. I think it's time to reinvent the mail client. Thunderbird 3 is coming out, but I think even beyond that, communications is changing, whether it's instant messaging or texting or mail or whatever. And so I think we're going to increasingly see communications become a pillar of what we do as well.
Well, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we're out of time. But if you have any more questions, where will you be today? Here?
I'll be around here for a little while, yeah.
All right.
Thank you.